Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 25th of November, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So it is the 25th of November, which means it is the 2-year anniversary of the Daily Gwei YouTube channel. I put the first Daily Gwei Refuel out on 25th of November, 2020, and it's crazy that it's already been 2 years, and so much has happened in those years, right? I've covered so many different things in both the Ethereum and crypto ecosystems generally, and if you really think about it, 2 years ago, November 2020, I mean, it was really just the start of the bull market in terms of like the craziness of the bull market. ETH was heading to its all-time high. We were a few days away from the Beacon chain launching on December 1st of 2020 there, and it really was a kind of crazy time to launch the channel because then there's so much content, so there was so much content to cover because we had all of 2021 and now all of 2022, and it's amazing going back and watching some of those earlier episodes. I went back and watched some of them today, just every, I guess, like 20 or 30 episodes or so for the first year. I went and looked and watched them, and I'm like, wow, we've come a long way as an ecosystem, that's for sure. And also the earlier episodes, especially like the first few, I was very quiet compared to what I am now. So that's always funny, and going back and seeing how I gained more confidence, I guess, in doing the show as time went on. And obviously as I gained a larger and larger audience with it. So I guess I also want to extend a huge thank you to everyone for supporting me for 2 years now. Obviously there is no monetization or anything on the Daily Gwei. So, and some of you have sent me donations on Gitcoin, of course, that I've thanked you for in the past. But I think just supporting the channel, just watching it and listening to it, giving me your feedback, commenting in the Discord channel, commenting on YouTube. I really appreciate all of that. It makes my work feel, very valuable. It makes me feel valued as a content creator. So yeah, thank you everyone for the last 2 years. And I'm not going anywhere, of course. I hope to be doing this for 10 years, 15, 20 years. Like, I really have no plans to stop doing this. And, someone kind of asked me the other day, or made a comment the other day about like when I would stop doing this, or stop doing the refuel, I guess. And I said, well, when it stops being fun, and I just can't see it stop being fun because Ethereum is so fun. I have been in Ethereum since 2017, and I can't remember a day where I wasn't having fun, even if there was lots of drama, even if there was lots of FUD and stuff spreading around. The ecosystem just grips me like nothing else in my life, and I don't think I'm going to be going anywhere for a very long time. So looking forward to continuing to do these every weekday for you all and having you all on the journey with me. Now, in saying that, let's move on to some exciting piece of news over the last 24 hours. Which was the all-core devs call that was had yesterday. Now, I mentioned that this was happening yesterday, and apparently it was very eventful. Tim Biko has his usual update thread, or summary thread, that you can read here. I'm obviously not going to go over everything that was discussed, but I think there are two main takeaways from this. The first is that EIP 4844 has been considered for inclusion. Now, this doesn't mean that it's going to be included in Shanghai, the next Ethereum upgrade. It's just mean that it's considered for inclusion. So it's a maybe, so to speak, right? So there was that, which was obviously a very big deal. And then the second thing, which I think is an even bigger deal, was and Tim highlighted here that the Geth team believes that they'd like to have said that they would like to have a relatively lean Shanghai, which prioritizes withdrawals, ideally includes EOF, which I've spoken about before. It's a set of different EIPs, and goes live around March. I actually think this approach is much better because I was giving some ballpark estimates yesterday about what Shanghai would look like in terms of timing if 4844 was included, and if it wasn't, well, how about we just do withdrawals and EOF and maybe some other EIPs that less intensive in March, get that out of the way, get the most critical thing out of the way, which is obviously withdrawals right now, and then get 4844 shipped maybe 6 to 9 months later, which would still put us in 2023 for 4844. I think that's the most sane approach here, having two separate upgrades rather than trying to shove everything into one and adding more complexity and of course adding more overhead and more development time and all that stuff there. I really side with that, because if we can get withdrawals as early as March instead of having to wait till something like, late Q2, I think that's a big plus. So I'm all for that. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, we'll get a clearer picture as time goes on here, but if the Geth team is saying this, then it holds a lot of weight, obviously, because Geth has been around the longest, right? They have a lot of weight on the core devs calls. They obviously are the majority client on the execution layer side still, so their voice carries a lot of weight here. And 4844 may be ready, I guess, for mainnet deployment. It may have a spec that's finalized with dev nets and all that stuff. But if the core devs aren't, I guess, aligned on it being safe enough to deploy, on it being ready enough to deploy, and want to keep an upgrade relatively lean, especially if it has something like withdrawals within it, then I think that's the path that's going to be taken. And as I said, I agree with this path. I think it's a better path than trying to shove everything into one upgrade. And it's funny because if withdrawals come as soon as March, it'll be hilarious to see what the FUDsters pivot to next, because you can just be like, well, you guys said withdrawals weren't coming till 2024 or ever. Well, here they are in March 2023. What do you got? What do you got next? I'm sure they'll come up with something else, but it's kind of funny thinking about that as well. But yeah, a great little summary thread as usual from Tim here that you can go give a read to. And also on the topic of EIP 4844, Terence from Prylabs put out a tweet thread saying there have been many discussions on the EIP 4844 timeline, so I thought I'd provide more color on where Arbitrum and Prylabs stands today. Now, you'll remember that Prylabs is now part of the Arbitrum company here, or Off-Chain Labs, I should say, company. So you should go give this thread a read. It's not very long. It's quite short, actually, just explaining it from Terence's point of view on the kind of timeline here. And as I was discussing, the timeline for 4844 being included is still up in the air. It is considered for inclusion in Shanghai, but that doesn't mean it's going to be included in Shanghai. I mean, Terence kind of says it in a tweet reply here saying CFI doesn't mean inclusion. As I stated on the call, myself and my team's stance is to not delay withdrawal for 4844. So it seems that like most of the core devs are gonna be aligned on this, if not all of them, eventually aligned on splitting these upgrades up. And I do think it's the better path forward personally here. In saying that, I think that if it was a bull market where fees were more a pressing issue and where scalability was a more pressing issue, it would have been interesting to see where everyone kind of, I guess, like fell on this, on the spectrum here. Because, for example, let's just say we rewind the clock back to the bull market and we have 44 ready to go. It's a few months till Shanghai goes live, and everyone's looking at these 100 Gwei gas prices, which are obviously pushing layer 2 gas prices up as well, and they're thinking, this is crazy. We need to do something now, right? We need to fix this now. Well, would 44 have been included in Shanghai because of this, the sense of urgency there? I think so. And you know what? The funny thing about withdrawals is the reason why people have such a sense of urgency around them is one, because obviously we want to stick to the promise that we made that withdrawals would be included in the first upgrade after the merge. But two, it's got to do with the censorship stuff, which actually is a recent phenomenon. It only started since the OFAC sanctions in August. So, the only reason why people are pushing for, well, one of the major reasons why people are pushing for withdrawals so much is because of that. Because obviously we want to make it so that people can change who they're staking with, so that we don't have entrenched staking providers and we don't centralize staking, the staking distribution more than it already currently is, or worse than it currently is, so to speak, and obviously help with censorship resistance as well. So it's kind of funny how, depending on where the ecosystem is at the time, will dictate things in a certain way. It doesn't really dictate it to the point where it has a control over it. So for example, the merge was coming for a long time, but there was no pressure to launch the merge in the bull market. Like no one was saying, we need to do the merge now because it's a bull market, get it done, get it out of the way, or we're going to miss the boat. I didn't really see any of that rhetoric, especially not from the Ethereum community. Maybe it came from the, I guess, like mercenaries and the profit maxis. Maybe they were saying things like that. But definitely within the Ethereum community, it was like, let's just ship this when it's ready. And we did. And it went perfectly, as we all know. So I think that in another timeline where 4844 was ready and it was still a bull market and 100 Gwei gas prices were kind of the norm again, I think that it would have probably been more likely to be included in Shanghai than it is now. I would say that the inclusion chance of 4844 in Shanghai is quite low at this point. Now that I have kind of seen the summary from the latest core devs call and the fact that they are signaling that they would rather just keep it lean. Yeah, but that, as I said, like I remember saying it was like a coin toss whether 4844 would be in Shanghai or not, but I've put a lower chance on that now. I would say if I had to put a percentage on it, it's probably less than 20% easily of a chance of it going in, but that's not a bad thing. I actually think it's a positive thing that it can go into a separate upgrade later on, hopefully 6 to 9 months after withdrawals. Probably it could even be sooner than that, depending on if it's ready, if the clients have developed it, if the clients have implemented it, and if the core devs in the community are happy with it to go ahead. It could come sooner, but we'll have to see how that shakes out there. But yeah, I'll link all these threads in the YouTube description for you to check out. All right, something I wanted to highlight here is a post from Domothy who said, "Here is my best attempt at annotating Ethereum's roadmap, providing a quick summary of each item along with relevant links to dive deeper. Feedback is welcome." And he links to a notes page here on notes.ethereum.org. This is actually amazing. Kudos to Domothy on this, because I've said before that you can Google each of those roadmap items that Vitalik had and you'd find the relevant information. Well, that's not very helpful, right? You can Google things and maybe you get stuck in different rabbit holes that you may not, necessarily want to be down. Well, Domothy has gone and done the work for you and basically put together all the resources that you need to learn about each of the roadmap items that Vitalik has stipulated before, with also a just brief explanation of what each of these things are, so that if you're not interested in a specific thing or something it seems too alien to you, you don't have to go down that rabbit hole. You can go down a different one and then work your way up to it. So, I mean, huge kudos to Domothy here. This is just amazing. And I mean, Domothy's an active Daily Gwei contributor in the Discord channel as well, but they are doing a lot of really great stuff with regards to Ethereum work here and putting out content. So definitely, I mean, highly recommend going and checking this out. Like, very highly recommend, to be honest, if you're interested at all in Ethereum's roadmap, which I'm sure you all are. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. And speaking of Domothy as well, I forgot to have this linked here, but he put out a banger meme today that I wanted to quickly highlight. And this goes back to the Withdrawals FUD. So you can see here in the meme, someone shouting off a cliff, "The merge will be delayed forever." And he's said that this is an esteemed Bitcoin thought leader shilling their paid subscriptions, books, or referrals. And then you got the NPCs on the right-hand pane saying, "The merge will be delayed forever." And then, we had the merge, proof of stake activated, and the NPCs are like, "Okay, well, what do we do now? What do we say now?" And then their dear leader says, "ETH stakers can't even withdraw yet." And then the NPCs go back to saying, "ETH stakers can't even withdraw yet." And this goes back to Vitalik calling Bitcoin maximalists or Bitcoin thought leaders NPCs or non-playing characters, where essentially they are all just drones and they all just follow their dear leaders instead of thinking for themselves. And that is obvious for anyone who pays attention to the rhetoric on Twitter, on YouTube, on Reddit, or any kind of social media platform. But I just wanted to highlight that because I thought it was cool. But definitely, the better use of your time than staring at memes is reading this post from Domothy, which I'll link in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, so I spoke a bit about the MetaMask Infura drama yesterday on the Refuel, and the drama's continued over the last 24 hours, and the TLDR is that there was a change in the privacy policy of Infura, saying that they were going to collect your IP address, and people took that as MetaMask and Infura going to be logging your IP address and essentially connecting all your wallets to that and being able to dox you and all these sorts of stuff. The thing about this is that, because it goes back to social media rewarding engagement, like tweets or engagement bait or drama, the truth of the matter is that the language, and as MetaMask states here, the language in the privacy policy was updated on November 23rd, but nothing has changed in the way that MetaMask and Infura operate. And they have a statement here on clarifying what they actually do with the user data, and apparently it's nothing. And I don't actually think that they store the data either. It's difficult to kind of draw the lines between Infura and MetaMask because they're two separate entities, and you have to, I guess, read each of the policies here. But from what I can tell, MetaMask doesn't actually store any of this, and they only use it or kind of use the information in order to send back your balances. So when you open up MetaMask and you want to query your balances, they need to be able to do batch sends and cache that in order to show you your balances. Is there a better way of doing this? I think there would be. Is there a better privacy preserving way of doing this? There probably is, but it's not as bad as as people think it is, where they think that MetaMask and Infura are logging their IPs, logging all their addresses, harvesting their data, and then doing something nefarious with that. Obviously, you have to trust that they're not doing things nefarious with it, and you have to trust that they're sticking to their word and sticking to their terms of service policy here. But MetaMask is open source. You can go check out all the code and all the underlying stuff that they do there. As I said yesterday, you can change your RPC relatively easily, and you can also use a VPN if you want to maintain privacy there. But the fact of the matter is, and the reality of the situation, is that maintaining digital privacy is actually quite hard in this day and age, and maintaining privacy on-chain is also very hard. Now, for example, when you go to an application front end, a DeFi app front end, most of the time those front ends are logging your information just as part of their everyday operations. Like, they're logging your IP address, they're logging your the address that you're using to sign in, they're probably logging your behavior because they want to improve their product. And honestly, like, it's not nefarious for them to be doing that. But the thing is that if you actually care about total privacy online and you want to be completely anonymous, you don't want any data to be harvested from you, the only way to achieve that would be to run a VPN, run your own node locally. Don't run a wallet that collects anything on you. So don't use MetaMask, right? Use something like frame.sh, which is an alternative that doesn't collect any information on you. Right. And yeah, run your own node as your own RPC, run your own front ends locally, and basically become a fully self-sovereign Ethereum. That's pretty much the only way. And you have to be very vigilant here as well about where your information gets leaked. That's pretty much the only way to do it. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's very, very difficult. Now, is this a bad thing? Is this something that's going to stifle mass adoption or anything like that? I don't think so. I think that if you really are privacy conscious and really care about your privacy, definitely keep putting pressure on these companies to not store your data. But I mean, at the end of the day, like the thing is that even if they say they're not storing it, they could be, whether that be accidentally, maybe they did know that it was storing it. There has been cases of this, or they're doing it anyway because they think that it helps improve their product, or maybe they're just doing it because they're nefarious and they want to sell your data to the highest bidder, or there's some scam website that looks legit but is actually a scam, and they want to blackmail you or something like that, right? So if you really want to preserve your privacy, there are ways to do it, but it's jumping through a bit of hoops to do that. There is no one-click solution for this, and there probably never will be, because that one-click solution could also come with trust assumptions. Even if it was open source, it could have an auto update feature where they change the code and then you auto update and you don't even realize that it updated, and then all your data is suddenly exposed to this third party. This isn't exclusive to Web3 and crypto. Obviously, this happens a lot in Web2 land. I mean, in Web2 land, the concept of privacy is pretty much like non-existent, right? And there's not just your IP, it's also your user behavior and things like that. But the beautiful thing about crypto is that you can run your own front ends. Like, for example, you can't run your own Twitter front end, right? Like, you can't talk to Twitter's servers without using a Twitter client that's built using their API or built using their infrastructure, or using the official Twitter app. Whereas something like Uniswap, you can run your own interface locally, or you can literally write your own interface and integrate with the Uniswap smart contracts on Ethereum using your own full node. So the amazing thing is that we can actually have full on-chain privacy in terms of being able to keep yourself pseudonymous rather than anonymous, because obviously everything on chain is transparent. But yeah, you have to jump through hoops to do that, which is just the reality of the situation. But hopefully that clears things up for you guys about how these different companies collect data and the different implications of that. You can check out MetaMask's blog post, which I'll of course link in the YouTube description below. And this is, I guess, like Consensus's blog post, but Consensus owns MetaMask, so technically MetaMask, but I guess that's just semantics. But yeah, go check that out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so you've probably been hearing a lot about Eigenlayer lately, and I've talked about them a bunch on the Refuel before. If you're still confused about what it is, Sriram, one of the founders, or at least the founder of Eigenlayer, has a good thread out today, and he starts off by saying, Eigenlayer, what is it good for? This is a thread that explains the underlying elements of trust in the Eigenlayer network and how they can be put together to create powerful services with customized, decentralized trust models. The TLDR on Eigenlayer, I mean, you can read this thread for yourself, but the TLDR is that it's attempting to take staked ETH and use it for something else. So, for example, their first product they want to do, and I don't know if they're going to do additional products, but I assume they will, is that they want to run a data availability layer using staked ETH. So essentially what you do is you take that staked ETH and you reuse the economic trust, decentralization trust, and ETH validator commitments, as Sriram says here, in Eigenlayer. And he says Eigenlayer is a generic platform that allows builders to mix and match these elements to create appropriate trust models. And in the trust model 1, there's economic trust. Because ETH is restaked on Eigenlayer, there is a reuse of economic security without incurring new capital costs. Enforcing economic trust requires programmatic slashing so that misbehaviors are identifiable on Ethereum. And so how does this differ from fraud proofs required for optimistic rollups? Well, latency. If there is enough amount staked on Eigenlayer to make a particular claim, then that claim can be instantly treated as correct and acted upon and later slashed if violated. And then he notes a use case 1, light client bridges. Run light clients to other chains off-chain and make stake claims on Ethereum. The input is acted upon immediately without any latency and later slashed if wrong. Requires EVM implementation of light client run on fraud challenge. So obviously, As I said, there's more than just the data availability use case. There's light client bridges, there's oracles, there's super fast settlement, as Sriram says here. For example, one can run a super fast settlement chain on top of Ethereum, which gives fast economic finality and which settles eventually on Ethereum. This layer verifies ZK proofs and arrives at consensus within 1 second, for example. And then he continues on. I mean, it's quite a lengthy thread. I definitely recommend giving it a read because it is very informative. But yeah, definitely go check it out. I'll link it in the YouTube description. But Eigenlayer is something that you should all be paying attention to. You should all be learning about it, and you should all be kind of following along with, because it is something that I definitely think is going to be a key innovation coming out of this bear market. All right, so Bert Amila from the Flashbots team shared an interesting little table today where he said, super interesting metrics on builder profits from relayscan.io. This is data for the last week. Build at 0x69, which is the relayer, seems to be subsidizing the medium block a little bit, but taking profit on very large blocks. Several builders are now profitable. So you can see here a breakdown of each of these in the table. I'm not sure if this is directly due to the fact that Flashbots open source their builder, which means that the builders can use that and be more profitable than they otherwise would have been. I'm sure that has something to do with it. And then, Bert says that profit is measured as the sum of the difference in the balance of the builder's address over all their landed blocks. As a positive value implies the builder took more in fees than they paid to the proposer. A negative value implies the builder subsidized the block. And you can see here that the total profit on the total profit column here, and then the different builders in the rows. And then Pintel makes a note saying, wow, was not expecting to see builder initiated MEV smoothing. And then Bert said, who knew the solution for MEV smoothing was to introduce public dashboards and competition for the #1 slot on those dashboards. So yeah, I mean, it seems that the reason why that they've been doing this smoothing is because they want to go up this dashboard and go up to and be #1 here. I guess like the reason they want to do that is because it's better for marketing and awareness and getting more people to use their builder. And I guess you can go to relayscan.io and actually check out the live view of this for yourself. So you can see top relayers and top builders. Now, of course, this is builder 0x69, which is the relayer builder. They're at the top here. So it's just like when you search on Google, you only click on like the first or second link. You don't really go too far down the table. Well, the same is true here. You're only going to look at the first few, right? You're going to look at the top relays, the top builders, and you're going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to use Flashbots, or I'm going to use blocks throughout max profit. And then on the builder side, I want to use builder 0x69. And you can see it when you hover over which relays support which builders and which ones are integrated with them. And you can do this by 24-hour, 12-hour, or 1 hour. So, I mean, that's a no-brainer there that the higher you are on this list, the better the marketing is. So very, very cool to see this. Cool to see that I think the effect of Flashbots open sourcing their builder infrastructure has actually made an effect here. And it's really cool to see that the relay, or because it's a non-censoring one, is the top builder. And you can see it's based on the payloads that it processes and the percentage on the top relay side, and then on the top builder side, it's blocks that it proposes and a percentage of those blocks, or blocks that it builds. Sorry, I shouldn't say propose there. So very, very cool dashboard that you can check out. I'll link in the YouTube description below. All right, so finally here we have an update from StarkWare. This is a first look into Cairo 1.0, which is fully open source. This is a big step towards open sourcing the StarkNet stack. You can now get familiar with the new syntax, compile, and run simple programs locally. StarkNet support is coming soon. So this is obviously for all developers out there. You can go check out their blog post and see what all the fuss is about. I've talked about Cairo a bunch before. It's the alternative to Solidity, or I guess like the native language on the StarkNet ecosystem. And today it is open source, but this is only the first step towards open sourcing the StarkNet stack. And they also give a whole breakdown of everything happening in the blog post here for everyone to check out if you want to do so. But as I said, this is more geared towards developers here. All right, so I've got a few minutes left here. I did go over time yesterday, so I might cut today's episode a little bit short, but I did want to make a note here about one thing in particular. So The funny thing about where we currently are as an ecosystem, and I know I've said this before, but I think it's worth reiterating. Like, if you ignore the market and ignore, I guess, crypto prices in general, and just paid attention to what's happening in the Ethereum ecosystem, you wouldn't even know it was a bear market. Like, I can't believe I went overtime yesterday. I did like a 40-minute episode yesterday. I'm doing 30-minute episodes pretty much every other day, and I'm not covering everything either. I'm not covering every project. I'm just covering the things that I come across, my Twitter feed and what I find most interesting. But if you were to bring together like everything happening in Ethereum each and every day and did like a whole list of it, you obviously wouldn't talk to it because it would take too long. But like did a whole list of everything happening, there would be so much on that list every single day. So the bear market only exists in the prices. The bear market does not exist in the developer activity on Ethereum, the ecosystem activity, the users continuing to grow, the adoption of layer 2s, that's all up and to the right. Like, and the prices always lag these sorts of things. It always lags fundamentals. And it really has me feeling like it's the similar to 2019, where the price just went sideways for basically the whole year. It started 2019 at 120 or 30, ended at 120 or 30, but the amount of innovation that happened in that year was staggering. And that paid dividends in 2020 when we had DeFi Summer, because DeFi Summer was only possible due to all the infrastructure that was built out in 2018 and 2019. So I think the same thing is going to be true for the next bull market. We're going to have all this infrastructure that we build out during the bear market, and I think layer 2s are going to play a huge part here, and then they're going to pay dividends and going to be the thing that drives the bull market to come back and the bull market to start again the next time it rolls around. Now, how long that's going to take, obviously, is anyone's guess. But really, I mean, if you don't pay attention to prices, it doesn't feel like a bear market at all. At least that's my feeling, and I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. But I guess on that note, that's going to be it for the 2-year anniversary episode of the Refuel. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the newsletter. Join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks, everyone.